Hey Greg, this is Dr. James Beadle. Dr. Stan told me to create just kind of a mini series on how we do the X-ray analysis, so you can, I guess, know how to direct the conversation next week with your presentation with EPICA for all of us in EPIC. So, really excited to see you guys next week, and hope it goes well. Let me go ahead and show you what we do, and by all means, ask me any questions. Shoot me an email. You can also send me a text or whatnot. Happy to do that too. But just wanted to quickly show you how we do the analysis, and I'm not sure how in depth you need it to go, but just let me know. All right, so I pulled up an X-ray so we can just kind of dive right into it. First of all, there's four views that we're looking at. You have what we call the sagittal view, a horizontal view, an axial view, and then a frontal view. From the sagittal view, we're needing to see the skull and all seven vertebrae, obviously with atlas right in the middle, so we can see clearly what's going on there. So one of the first things we do is we actually do describe George's line, so we can see that. We look at the curve of the neck globally from just like a Cobb's angle perspective, looking to see how far forward is the head in comparison to C7. So C7 up to C2 right there for the anterior head carriage. We also scribe right here how to triangulate where is the transverse process of C1. And that's mainly it from this side. We're also using this to know really where to adjust and triangulating that transverse process. But we're not getting much more data than that as far as numbers are concerned. With the axial, we're mainly concerned with the superior surface of C2, and we plot down 4 points for that. These 4 points, the student that actually analyzed this, so these are actually right on top of the C2 surface, right here. And what that's giving us is this circle, this arch that you can see in purple, and that arch is crucial for knowing what's the line of drive that we're going to be using to adjust the atlas into the right location. So currently this circle has a diameter of 7.26 inches. So that's one of the things that I'm really excited with CBCT and what you guys have is that we don't have to do this open mouth thing. We can just look right at that C2 real quickly. So that's going to be a bonus in your presentation. Going back to the sagittal as a bonus in your presentation, it will actually be showing kind of like a slice where you can see the transverse process and zooming out to the skin. You'll get a lot of wow factor on that one. Let me show you the horizontal next. So the horizontal is actually taken at 50 degrees. So right here, there you go. So tubes coming from up here, coming down this direction, and we're trying to get this picture of the atlas from that horizontal perspective. Obviously, we can't go straight down. Again, that's a huge bonus of what you guys have. So that gives us this picture right here, and then we scribe a line through the center of the skull this direction and through the atlas this direction, and that gives us a degree. And we like being kind of anal about this, so we love seeing like to the 100th degree. So 1.98 degrees rotated forward on the left, so it's a left anterior. It could also be a right posterior, depending on some factors that we can talk about later. To do this, let me go ahead and delete all these annotations and plop it down. So we first put down this little calculations box. The next one is for the horizontal cranium line. It's a template that will show where's the symmetry of the skull, trying to find out where the weight-bearing portion of the skull is. So I can go ahead and just show you real quick how we're looking at that. So I look at the top 2 points up here first. Once those are in place, then we look at these points down here to make sure that it's actually rotated correctly. So obviously if it was rotated like this, I'd still be okay on top, but horrible on the bottom because here it's touching on the skull, but over here it's not touching at all. So you want it to where it's symmetrical all the way around the skull. And, you know, right about there. So looking at that point, that distance right there, that distance right there, that distance right there, and that distance right there. So it's equidistant now from the skull. Now, again, unfortunately, this is only looking at realistically just 4 points, which I don't like. It's assuming that this is an ellipsoid, but hopefully with your guys' software, we can take it the next step, further. Push the question mark that describes a line down the center, and then we look at the atlas. There's different references that we're looking at with the atlas, but the overall arching fact is that we're trying to go through like structures. So an easy one to find is the transverse foramen, going from one side of the transverse foramen to the other side of the transverse foramen. But it could also be the anterior superior facet of C1 or the posterior superior facet of C1. The other one would be the neural canal of C1, which I'd be really interested to see how you guys view this one. So this is how we're describing that, is going from the anterior tubercle of C1 to the posterior tubercle of C1. And if all those match up, then we're great. We could use any one of those lines to describe where the atlas is sitting on that horizontal plane. So that's it from the horizontal. This will be a great selling point for you guys, just because, again, you can cut out a lot of the extra stuff and get a nice oval because you're not having all the just the extra weird stuff going on. And also you'd be able to take out C2 on down. We're just really looking to see how is C1 in comparison to the skull. But then if you guys can cut it even more and just have it where it's the condyles of occiput, so like the foramen magnum and condyles to C1 and even C2, that would be a really good shot from your perspective to look straight down through that neural canal. All right, so then the last one, there's a lot of stuff that we're looking at with this one. It could be a little overwhelming. The overall design is that we're looking straight, like what is the line that goes through the skull, the line that describes where the atlas is, and then a line that also describes where the neural canal is. And how we're describing the neural canal is we use C7 as kind of our base, and then the dens of C2, we bisect that, and then we have the spinous process of C2. How we're looking at this line, we actually have this tool that can describe the plane line or the slope of the skull on this side versus the plane line or the slope of this line on the skull. And I can make that sensitive or less sensitive, depending on how we want to do it. So I'll zoom in real quick so you can see that. So I can make it less sensitive, so see how it's just really blocking and starting to get away from the skull on both sides, or I can make it really sensitive and gets nice and close to the skull. We try and get it as close to the skull as possible. That gets us that slope, and you're basically taking this slope and that slope, averaging it together, and you're getting that red dotted line, which is actually right where that yellow line is. So we press the question mark and it scribes that yellow line. So that would be the midpoint of the skull from this perspective. I'm not sure how, like, if you would actually want to take a slice of just the parietal bones, because it is nice to see the orbits in the front, but kind of curious to see what you guys come up with that one. Like maybe take out some of the occiput or something and make it cleaner, but I don't think it's quite that necessary. Then from the atlas plane line right here, so this is called the frontal atlas line. Again, we're using different reference points to verify that this is actually a good line to scribe. So you have the superior facet in that very, very top part right there. And then the last one down here is the inferior lateral mass. So you have the superior lateral mass, inferior lateral mass, and just that corner right there. Then you also have the posterior arch on the top and on the bottom. So here would be for the bottom, and there'd be for the top part. So that's what actually be down here. That's one reason why we take all 4 lines, because one of them could actually not be congruent with the other ones. So, oops, I'll use this one. Ooh, that's exciting. Let's come up to here. So I would use this line and actually scribe each of these together and see which one do I like for that reference point. So these 3 are actually all parallel, right? Very close to parallel, whereas this one is totally off. It's not even able to be used. So I would not be using that line for the atlas plane line. I might be going way too fast, but I just figured you'd probably want like a 10-minute video and not a 2-hour long video of why we do what we do. So then for this lower spine line, we're again bisecting the lower neck. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this so you can see how I do this. So you have a point here for the both sides of the dens. Then you have the spinous process about right there. And then we come down here to C7, get to the body or to the articular pillars of C7, so there and there. And that scribes our lower angle. It plops down all of these points that we would need, and it ends up with a Z and a Y that we would then input into the table that Dr. Stan and Dr. Kelsey created, and that's how we would adjust. So the side that we adjust on is the side of the acute angle on the top. So you could call this like the upper angle. This is the lower angle. Actually, no, it looks like the acute angle is actually on the right. No, it looks like it's on the left. It's kind of interesting. The last part that we do look at is to see if the condyles are in the same plane as the skull, because it can be abnormal. So one of the ways that we do that is we actually are placing a plane line on the outside borders of the condyles and then comparing that to the skull. So we have a template for this. Get it along that plane line that I described. This is pretty advanced stuff, but anyways, what we'd be looking at is this template goes along the condyles in a symmetrical pattern, and then we bring that back up to the parietal bones and see if the parietal bones and the condyles are congruent with each other also, right? So are the condyles sitting perpendicular to the plane line of the parietals up here? So one way that we would do that would be looking at these lines right here. That's a 3. So we place a 3 right here. And then bring this over on this side, looking at the left lines going against the skull, so right here. That one would be a 4.5. And how the math works is actually pretty simple. We just say 4.5 minus 3, which is 1.5. We times that by 2, so that's going to be 3 degrees. So we put in 3 degrees right here. And that is the amount of condylar aberrancy for this particular patient. And you can see that already because the condyles are not flat in comparison to the skull, right? If you were to take a line for the orbits right here and then bring that down, you're hitting your left condyle before your right condyle. And so the condyles themselves are at a tilt like this. One of the things that we'd like to see is that we would be able to see the internal condyles. So you have the outside condyle right here, but then it gets really, really difficult to see where does that condyle end, because again, that's where that foramen magnum is going to be. So that would be another great shot that we've been able to use with CBCT to be able to see clearly, like with take out the nose, take out all those concha and everything, so you can actually visualize inside there. So those are some things that I'd like to see from just a upper cervical perspective. One, when I'm analyzing any of those structures, take out the facial structures that are just not needed. So when I'm looking at the skull, everything's fine up here. I'm okay. When I'm looking at the condyles, be able to take out the facial structures so that I can actually see the condyles. And then when I'm looking at C2 down to C7, taking out the facial features so that I can see clearly what is that C2 to C7 direction. From this perspective, again, what I would want to see is where's the transverse process in relationship to the skin. So then I can triangulate that better. I can visualize that better when I'm adjusting the patient. A fun thing that we like to see also are there any elongated styloids? If you mention that in your presentation, you'll get a lot of oohs and ahs. That's something that Dr. Stan presented on, I think about 2 years ago now. Yeah, that creates some good waves in the upper cervical community. Then from this one, the axial, again, making it to where the facial features are gone. You can just look at the superior surface along the superior surface of C2. So how we're looking at that one, let me just show you this. So we have an orthogonal line going across the C2 surface, so superior surface. That way, when we're taking this shot from for the axial, it's coming this direction right here, and looks across the superior facets of C2. So that's how we get that one. To get the frontal perspective, that one's not just straight on, so it's not just a 0-degree X-ray. It's actually going along a plane line of the atlas. So that one, let me change that. So how we describe that is going along the posterior arch, and the X-ray that then is coming from the front is looking down this plane line to be able to see the atlas right here. So anyways, that's the very, very quick, brief, probably way too much information in just a few minutes, but I just wanted to give you a quick rundown of how we do our X-ray analysis. And by all means, I'm very happy to go ahead and go more in depth with you and explain more of these lines if you need them. I just wasn't sure how much information you did want to know. But if you did get in contact with me, Dr. Beetle or Dr. Beetle at epicclinics.com. Phone number is 801-709-1542. The office number, in case it's during business hours, is going to be 801-900-3223. That's at Sound Corrections Chiropractic. So if it's during business hours, that's where I'll be. Otherwise, send me a text or email me or call me. We'll figure it out. All right. Thanks, Greg. We'll see you. Bye.